The property management group through CCAR is primarily a group of agents associated with businesses and property management, and with various sizes of portfolios, if you will, and really a tremendous resource, as you'll see from the panel that's been assembled today. We've been meeting on a monthly basis, both by committee, much of which has to do with having a Q&A session, an educational session, determining what some of the benefits are to both our consumers, our landlords, and to the agency itself. I'm grateful for Adam as being our public affairs liaison, if you will, and representing that work. We have the fortune of having Krishna with us as well, that helps us not just tied to CCAR, but with NARPM and the connection to that organization itself. We've got individuals that, like Danny, who's on the board, or on the panel today, who's not just in CCAR, but represents other MLSs as well. And then additionally, we've got some really good knowledge by property managers collectively. So we give an open invitation to anyone who wants to participate, either by committee and or just participate in the education components itself, to join us on a regular basis, and we'll put you on the distribution list and other things. So delighted to be gathered together, and thankful for those who are participating in this session today. Thanks, Krishna, for allowing me to do that.
Thanks, Jonathan. And Linnell's joined us. She's the chair of the committee. Linnell, are you there? Oh, sorry. Well, thanks, Jonathan. All right, Krishna, back to you.
Okay, so just a quick introduction.
Sorry.
Oh. Linnell, do you want to talk about our committee? I mean, Jonathan's kind of highlighted it. You want to introduce it?
Yeah, Jonathan did fine. Y'all go ahead. My camera's not working.
No
Y'all
problem.
go ahead.
Okay, thank you. So I'm Krishna Upadhyaya. I'm a property manager here in the area. I'm also the president for NARPM. Jonathan mentioned NARPM, and I'm this year's president of the Dallas chapter. And Danny is our current RVP. He's a regional vice president of NARPM, and he can talk about his experience with NARPM as well, and some things that are coming up at the state level. We have Adam here, and we have JC. And I'm going to give you guys an opportunity to introduce yourself and tell us how you're involved in the industry. We can start with Danny.
Hi, good morning. Thanks so much, Krishna. My name is Danny Hardiman. I've been in the business since 2004, so 16 human years. I don't know how many that is in property manager years, but it's a lot more. A lot more. Yeah, I'm currently the chairman of the Texas Realtors Leasing and Property Management Committee in Austin. I've also chaired the Leasing and Property Management Committee for MetroTex, the MetroTex Board of Realtors. I'm also past president of the Greater Dallas NARPM chapter. And for those of you that don't know what NARPM is, it's the National Association of Residential Property Managers. I also sit on the board at MetroTex as well. And I also teach. So I teach, certification courses for leasing and property management across the state. One clarification though, Krishna, I'm not the RVP. That would be Pete Newbig at NARPM. I'm the ambassador. So I'm like the assistant to the manager. I'm like the Dwight Schrute of NARPM right now. For those of you that are office
ambassador.
fans. Right.
Ambassador. I promoted you without you knowing.
That's okay. I'm excited to be here though. Thanks.
Adam, you want to go next?
Sure. Yeah, I'm Adam Majori. I am the Collin County Association of Realtors Chief Advocacy Officer, which basically means I'm your in-house government affairs, regulatory affairs, political consultant, lobbyist, you name it. I do all things type of political stuff. Been happy to say that I've been with CCAR. I'll be 8 years in November. Love every minute of it, and just happy to represent y'all.
Thank you. And JC.
Thank you, Krishna. J.C. Posey. I've been licensed since 72. I don't think we started managing property all the way up till 74, maybe. I'm a past chair of the Texas Realtors Leasing and Property Management Committee, served in various positions at the board, and happy to be here. Thank you all for having me.
Thank you, JC. So thank you for the introductions, and I think we'll go ahead and just start with the questions. You know, this whole pandemic and this new way of conducting business has affected all of us. And just kind of curious to, this question is mainly for Danny and JC because they're property managers and kind of working as property managers. What changes have you started to make? What changes have you seen? And, JC, you can go first.
Okay, thank you. Well, in March, of course, we closed our office for about 3 weeks. There's only 5 of us that work here besides the agents. So we have a pretty small group. When we reopened, we have a notice on the front door. We have hand sanitizers and masks everywhere. To this day, we have a notice on our front door that says this is our office hours. We are open, but we have a mail slot to the right of the door if you'd prefer not to come in. Here at the office, it's pretty much business as usual now. Once again, we have very few people come in. 94% of our folks pay their rent online, et cetera. But the other thing we've done is we're not showing tenant occupied properties. I don't know if anyone is, but that's probably going to be a permanent change for us. We've had to discuss that with some of our owners, our landlords, and once we discuss it, they get it. Another thing that we've done is we've had folks ask for extra cleaning. So we've notified all of our owners that if the property's been vacant, they're going to need to pay for a one-time disinfectant cleaning when a new tenant moves in. We didn't always have to do that. It's a change, but it's one that our owners have accepted. I think that's most of it. How about you, Danny?
So JC, real quick for clarification, you
Sure.
have your cleaning crew disinfect and the owners pay for that?
Right before move-in, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I would echo a lot of what JC said. I think a lot of us that are in the industry really had to just push the pause button and basically reevaluate a lot of the processes that we've had in place for many, many years. A lot of us run very streamlined operations, and especially after the passage of the CARES Act, we were, this is the term I've been telling my owners, we've been neutered. We don't have, we can't really, enforce rent collection right now. So, that was a main thing, is to step back, reevaluate everything. But, specific changes, I wrote some down here for you. Like JC said, we stopped showings on all occupied properties. We had already been transitioned over to a self-showing model on vacant properties, but we no longer do escorted showings. For those of you on the call that are not familiar with that, there's a lot of self-showing solutions on the market now. And that has gained a lot of traction even prior to the pandemic, but now more than ever, it's essentially the best solution out there for showing properties. We also postponed all of our periodic property inspections until further notice. In fact, we haven't started those back up yet, just due to safety concerns, on both sides, for the vendors and for the tenants. Another thing we did was when properties are vacated, we've been doing, I don't know what a good term is, maybe a holding time, or, we've been waiting 3 to 4 days after the property's vacated to enter properties, just out of, an overabundance of safety and caution, because we would be dead in the water if our staff gets sick or if our vendors get sick. So that's another step we've taken. Another thing.
do you get pushback from your owners about, losing money those 3-4 days that it's vacant?
And that's a good question. And, we have not had any pushback whatsoever, and I think what a lot of us in the industry have had to do is if we've had a lot more dialogue over the last few months with our clients than we normally do, because there's so much uncertainty. And so we've had to effectively communicate why we're taking all these steps and the logic behind it, behind those decisions. I didn't have any pushback whatsoever. They were just thankful for the updates. They completely understand. They know we're in a tough position. So that hasn't been an issue. And, if I have a client that's going to complain about missing potentially 3 to 4 days of rent, that's not really a client I want to have, because I think their priorities are out of whack. Let's see, a couple more things on my list here. We've also had, we went to all of our owners, and we can go into the CARES Act later for those of you that aren't familiar with the requirements are, but we went to all of our owners to find out what type of financing they had in place if they have a loan on the property, because the CARES Act has very strict regulations for those property owners that have a federally backed mortgage or have like a Section 8 tenant in the property. Anything that has any exposure to government or federal exposure, there's going to be limitations there. That part has been a challenge because a lot of owners have no clue what type of loan they have on a property. We've also added that to our onboarding process too now. So going forward, we're capturing that data. I don't know, JC, you've been in the industry a long time. I don't know anyone in our industry that, takes in that data, on the front end of bringing in a new client, what type of financing they have in place. Because it's never really been, it's never been applicable before. So that has been a huge challenge. Vendor training, we had to retrain our vendors, give them access if they don't already have it to CDC guidelines, social distancing, best practices while on site. And then last but not least, I wrote down empathy. We've had to empathize with the tenants that are being impacted here. It's a really challenging position for us because, we've been paid all these years to not have a heart, right? I mean, we've been paid to enforce the
No,
letter
we
of the
have a
lease.
heart. We have a heart.
Well, we do. Mine's a little, I'm like the Tin Man, I guess. That eviction train never stops in our office, right? That timeline is we don't push the pause button. So we've had to just, have a little empathy because there's a lot of good, genuine people out there that have been adversely impacted that want to pay their rent and they just haven't been able to do it. So I think it's brought a little bit of the personal touch back, to our business as well. And, I think it's a good thing. It's kind of refreshing, to be honest with you.
So you mentioned self-access. Can you name a couple of companies, JC or Danny, that you use or you recommend so some of our listeners can maybe get to those resources?
JC?
I'm not using that. Who are you using, Danny?
So we use Tenant Turner. So it's Tenant, Turner. There's some other solutions out there. They all, do pretty much the same thing. There's another one called Rently, Rently. And then there's another one called ShowMojo, ShowMojo. I think those are the three big players. I'm not really familiar with other ones, but
we
those
use
are the ones
Tenant Turner. We use Tenant Turner. Yeah, it's been good.
Right.
So speaking of changes, have you added any new forms to your business, any new documents? You mentioned about, Danny, what kind of financing your owners have. Is that part of your a package now? And what else have you added?
Yeah, so there's a form that we've added to our property management agreement documentation on the onboarding side when we're taking on a new client, so that we can just capture that data on the front end. That's a new form. Let me see what else I wrote down here. We created a Google form when tenants are impacted or reach out to us that they've been impacted by COVID-19. We'll send that out to, it's, like a questionnaire, and they have to fill in all the data. And the reason why we're doing it that way is just so we can capture the exact same data for every single person, all in one place. So we created that Google form. Texas Realtors was really, really quick. For those of you that were on that call, back at the end of March, I was right there with you guys leading the charge, telling, Texas Realtors that, hey, we need a form. We need something immediately because top of the month is right around the corner, literally days away. They were really quick at getting forms out there for us. For those of you that don't use it, they did create a COVID-19 lease payment plan agreement. It's form number 2227. That is what we've been utilizing to create payment plans for those people that have been impacted. So we've implemented that. And then we've also created a resource document for rental assistance programs, for anybody that has been impacted. It's just kind of anytime we get information on the internet or we hear of something, we've kind of got a catch-all resource document, say, hey, here's a list of places you can try to go get some rental assistance. Basically anything we can do to help them find money to get our clients, made whole, which is the property owner.
What about you, JC?
Well, I agree with Danny. Texas Realtors did a great job for us. His leadership on the property management, leasing and property management committee gave the input, but the staff at TAR did the work and finished up. We immediately sent to all the owners information for landlords concerning the lease and COVID-19. We also, as soon as we got it, sent information for tenants concerning the lease and COVID-19. We require the COVID-19 certification for property access for all persons that go into a property. For example, our vendors, when we go, we're not doing that as much now, but when we have to go, everyone, including anyone who will be on the property, at the property, has to sign the certification. We've used the agreement to pay past due amounts under the lease just a couple of times. And I guess we'll see on July 1st how that's working. Not sure. But we did get a lot of help from Texas Realtors, and Danny's leadership helped a lot.
Adam, do you recommend any other forms that that they didn't mention that property managers could access?
I think they covered it. I really do. I think, again, as JC said, the property management committee at Texas Realtors really, they really came through. The legal department has been wonderful throughout this whole process, not just for property management, but just in general. So yeah, I think that those forms, if you all need them, please go to the Texas Realtors website and look them up under the forms. And if you even go under COVID-19, there's even more information to basically help you with your business. So please go back to that website and refer back to it.
So kind of moving on to the next question about forms, you mentioned financing for the owners. How are you handling that? Are you, they probably need to do some process with their lenders. So how are you helping them in that process? JC, can you take that one first?
We immediately sent information. And I don't really know exactly how I get on some lists, but I'm on a couple of email lists from NAR. They sent out some very good information. We sent that to every owner. I have not had one owner call me and say, what do I need to do next, or do I need that? I think we're fortunate. A lot of our owners we've worked with for a very long time, and they probably either have low balances or no balance. That could be part of it. But we sent the information out. We've not had a request for help with it.
What about you, Danny?
Yeah, I have to echo what JC says. I don't think it's as dire out there as we all thought it was going to be. I honestly have not had one client, reach out stating that, they need some sort of forbearance or, they're desperate for that rent money to pay their mortgage. So I think from that perspective, we've been very lucky so far. But yeah, I mean, we've done the same things. Any conversations that we've had with property owners, we've asked them, you should just reach out to your mortgage company, find out what options are available, see if you qualify for forbearance, et cetera. But, fortunately, it just hasn't been this major disaster that we saw that might be coming down the pipe.
I would agree.
I haven't seen anything either. I have one owner who needs the rent money to pay his mortgage. So, but his bank is working with him, and that's been my only experience. I do have a question on the chat box here. I was told access certification form could be somewhat discriminatory. I do not see it. Thoughts? I'm thinking the certification form that we put in the vacant properties, and I think that's what they're asking about, is somewhat discriminatory.
I would take that as, I think that they're asking about the COVID-19 access certification form. Yeah, okay, it was clarified there. So we're not using that form. And I think a few of us on the call here, I think we had a little discussion on this yesterday. I really don't know what true level of protection that offers you anyway. Obviously, there's really no precedent here. Like, how is that form truly going to protect us? And second of all, how is somebody, if they're going to file a suit, be able to trace it back to, okay, well, it was when that XYZ person that signed that one form came in and they got me sick, so they lied. I just don't know what level of protection it truly offers us. So, it's just not a form we're using. As far as the discriminatory part, I don't have any thoughts on that.
And I think that part of it, and this is not legal advice, part of this signing that document is an acknowledgement that they are aware that there's a pandemic. It's, where you're going in of your own volition. And it also gives the public, puts them on notice. And I agree, it probably wouldn't hold water. Puts the public on notice, though, that we are trying to warn them, if you will. And it's a feel-good document for them. And if they know that they've signed it, they're going to be less likely to move forward with the lawsuit. And it is a good E&O situation.
Yeah, and I agree with you, Linnell.
I agree with Linnell, and that's part of our decision to use it is no. It's the seller's disclosure. It says to the best of my knowledge. And then there are still lawsuits under the seller's disclosure. So I feel like this is a little bit the same way. It's a little bit of a chink in the armor or chipping away at someone's claim. It is not, you can't just say they signed this, I have no liability. No, but it seems like to me it's a good piece of the puzzle. That was our decision after talking with our company attorney.
And you're right. I agree with Adam. On the E&O issue, the one thing that I would strongly encourage is for everyone to read your E&O policy. A lot of brokers out there have not paid the extra money for E&O coverage for property management, and that can be a problem. I know someone right now that I've been talking to, and something came up on another issue, and her broker did not have E&O coverage on her property management. So she's having to look at the whole thing. So my first statement would be, please read your own errors and omission policy. But with E&O, hey, if you show a house and you sell it and then all of a sudden it has termites because they bought it during swarm and it didn't have termites whenever they did the inspection, they walk into the living room and it's covered. E&O will cover you the best they can, but there are no guarantees here. And this little document that we're using, while it's wonderful, it is not a catch-all. And that's a personal opinion, not legal.
Very good. Thank you. Thank you from everybody. So we're going to move to the tenant side. We spent a little bit of time talking about the owners, and now we're going to talk about the tenants. So have your tenants applied for rental assistance? What has been the process? And I think, Adam, you had some notes for us on that.
Yeah, I've got some great stuff, but I want to hear from our property managers first, and then I'll walk you all through mortgage subs. So just for a quick background for those of you that don't know, the Collin County Commissioner's Court, along with Judge Hill, I was on the Collin County Economic Recovery Task Force, And one of the things that we did is we're very blessed to have really great leadership in our county. They passed, they got $171 million from the CARES Act, from the Federal CARES Act. So that's not the county issuing any more debt. And 45 million of that goes to tenant, utility, and mortgage relief, or subsidy really. And I'm going to walk you all through that in a second. But before we do that, yeah, JC and Danny, how's it going on y'all's front? Are you guys getting your full rent?
Right, and if they've also needed help with utility assistance.
That's right too. Yeah.
JC,
We
you
have
wanna go
had,
first?
thank you. We've had several tenants ask about that. We've given them all the information. To my knowledge, as of today, we do not have any tenants that have received any money yet from Collin County. Danny, how's yours going?
Pretty much the same. I mean, we haven't had any tenants that I have been made aware of that have got any type of, government money. We do have a few that have received money from charities. Where we've, the only reason I know this is because, we've got checks in the mail, from, a few of charities across the area. But yeah, I really don't have much to add as far as, finding, government money. I do know, and, I was monitoring this closely when this all broke out, especially when the city of Dallas went live with their program. I don't know, Adam may be able to chime in more on this. And I kind of just quit looking at it, but they had, some money set aside. And on day one, I think they had 17,000 applications for essentially 1,000 spots on day one, and it crashed their system. I haven't really monitored that because honestly, we really haven't had a lot of tenants need it. So again, that's a good thing going into this. As far as utility assistance, we haven't had anybody ask us about that. I do know that, the Public Utility Commission, they ordered all the providers to offer deferred payment plans to any customers that, have been impacted. The various water utilities, have suspended water disconnects. I think Atmos, the gas company did the same. So I know that there's been some sort of assistance there as well. But again, I think we're just fortunate that this really hasn't impacted us in the way that we thought it might.
I agree.
Adam?
Well, I just think that's great news. I really do. And it is also really nice that we're able to offer assistance, particularly from the counties that are able to access the program that they did. And I'm just going to go ahead and share my screen with you all. Unfortunately, I can't share links, but I highly encourage you guys to go to www.ccar.net. And you can click on our homepage, you'll be able to see the COVID-19 advocacy. If you can click on that, you'll be able to find exactly where, if you have any clients, whether you're a property manager or a realtor, if you have a client that needs even mortgage assistance, they can access this program. The 45 million out of the 171 million that was set up is actually for utility assistance, food assistance, mortgage assistance, and tenant and rent assistance. So it's a really great program. On our website, as well as on the county's website, you'll be able to see how you can qualify. The biggest thing is that you need to document your income. You need it's 200% of the AMI. We have the chart here so you can see whether or not your tenant or your mortgage or your client can qualify for it. This is how it looks. It's just a really wonderful program. You can qualify from anything from March 1st up to December 1st. That's the window for the first rollout. So June 1st was the first rollout for $30 million of the 45 million. 45 million has been earmarked. So another 15 has been earmarked after that. The county's done a wonderful job preparing for, if there is a second wave, to have kind of stuff in reserve, if that makes sense. And so the 30 million is accessible now. You can go to our website and you can click on this link right here. It'll direct you directly to the Collin Cares website where you can actually apply. I will also send you, all the attendees, I will send you this document, which is the full housing assistance program package after this call. So you guys have it for the clients and you can really see how it works in Collin County. One of the most important things, if you have a client that lives in Collin County but lives in the Dallas city or the city of Dallas, they don't qualify for this because the city of Dallas accessed their own CARES Act package. Other than that, any other city in all of Collin County, so long as they're a resident, is able to access that. If they have questions as to whether or not they are able to, if they're eligible, you can see here where this is the actual map, and it'll tell you whether or not your client or your tenant is able to access this package. It's a very, very important package. We worked very hard through our advocacy to ensure that real estate was prioritized. Our elected officials are absolutely incredible. Our delegation from Collin County is just absolutely phenomenal. We understand that real estate's the backbone of the continued growth and success of our county. And they're doing everything they can to ensure that we continue moving forward. And I'm very proud of this. It's something that our advocacy team worked very hard on. Our county judge is absolutely phenomenal, Chris Hill, and David Bristol, who is the chair of the Collin County Recovery Task Force, is also, he works out with, not works out, but he works on the Texas Workforce Commission. So on the Federal CARES Act, this is another thing that y'all should just know from the realtor advocacy standpoint. The Federal CARES Act allowed for independent contractors and self-employed individuals to be able to access unemployment benefits. So the relationship that we've built through the recovery task is really wonderful, trying to navigate through the Texas Workforce Commission for our members that need to access unemployment. So I really hope you guys use this. If you have tenants or if you have clients that need help with their mortgage or they need assistance with any types of payments. And yeah, so that's what I have, Krishna.
So what if someone doesn't have a computer or Wi-Fi access? What if they need to go in person? Is that a possibility?
You know, that's a good question. I don't know that. I'm happy to follow up when I send this out in an email to the attendees. I'm happy to follow up with the Commissioner's Court and figure that out. But one of the things that I do know is that, and this is just anecdote, I know that this is part of the program, so anecdotally, I'm going to say this. What's really cool about this process is that it doesn't put that much burden on the county employees. What it actually does is it utilizes nonprofits in certain zip codes to process the loan payment or to process the applications. So I guess it's highly possible that if they're open, that somebody could walk in and probably fill something out at their location. If you go to the actual application, when you enter your zip code, it actually pops up and incorporates a certain nonprofit in your zip code for you to contact. So I'm assuming that you'll likely be able to go in, but I don't want to say that 100% sure because I don't know. But
There was a question, is this for tenants or owners? And
both.
it said residents, so is there also owners can go here too?
Yes, that's my understanding. It says mortgage. So if they have a mortgage and they need mortgage relief, that's my understanding.
Okay.
Adam,
Is
do
that
you know
it?
how much money is left in that fund?
So it just rolled out 9 days ago. I'm gonna have a conversation with the judge probably, I'd say in about a week. I wanted to give it about 2 weeks or so before I kind of checked in on it. But I don't think, based off of the way that the way that the market's working, I'm worried that we cried a little wolf, to be honest, with that much money. So we'll figure it out, but I don't know the answer to that. But I'll follow up with the group later on once I talk to the Commissioner's Court.
And if you don't mind, Krishna, I'd just like to piggyback off something Adam just said there. And JC, I don't know, where your portfolio is. Our portfolio tends to skew on the higher rent levels. I think that I don't want, the people watching this webinar to think that all is rosy across the board. Those at lower income levels and in lower level jobs have been much more impacted, I think, than the higher level professional jobs out there. Case in point, if you look at the data across the single family management realm, NARPM has done a good job of aggregating data from all of our peers across the country. And, what we're seeing is most people are over the 90% full rent collected threshold, whereas, the data coming out of the multifamily was closer to the 70% range. So, there is still a lot of need out there. I just think it's at the lower end of the scale versus, the mid to higher end of the scale.
Danny,
I would tend to agree with you on that, particularly regarding certain types of workforce housing for restaurant employees and people that have been really hit hard on this. And that was something that we talked about in the Economic Recovery Task Force as well, is just what you just stated. And we don't have any like hard evidence of that yet. And the reason, and so hopefully help we get the word out and people are able to access this to ensure that they get relief as well as the market stabilizes.
Right.
Chris, sorry, go ahead, JC.
Yeah, ours, Danny, probably like yours, 1% maybe, between 1 and 2. But in the Dallas Morning News this morning, nationwide, apartment rents over 19% as of a couple of days ago had not paid June rent. That's just not our experience here. It doesn't mean that we don't have folks that need help. We certainly do across the board. Thankfully, not as big a numbers, but it's incumbent upon us to pay attention when some folks do need help and get it. And Adam, those resources will be welcomed.
Yeah, and the other thing I'll say, which is it's an interesting way of implementing this. What's really interesting about it is if a tenant applies, the actual check or the amount, if you will, for the rent subsidy goes directly to the property manager or landlord.
Right.
Which is a very interesting, good thing for the program. And same thing with the mortgage. If somebody needs help with a mortgage, right, they need assistance, it goes directly to the mortgage company. I really like that. I think that just ensures that the money that's been allocated is actually used for the purpose for which it's been allocated. And so that's another good thing about the program. But yeah, I mean, we got to make sure that, I've always said from the very beginning that if you're going to have COVID-19 shelter-in-place orders, right, you need to make sure that people have shelter,
Right.
And even though it's lifted, but it's kind of, it's still true. People need places. So real estate's always been essential, and I'm happy to, CCAR is just happy that we were able to get this program or help get this program in place, even though the elected officials are the one that did it.
Adam, I have a question as far as, and obviously I haven't read your document yet. Can you, as a landlord or property manager, you brought up a good point as far as those payments would go directly to the landlord. I've read the City of Dallas's documents and requirements, and they do allow for landlords to essentially pre-register themselves with the city. If they, even if they don't have an expected payment coming, at least you could potentially be ready to receive funds. Is that something that Collin County has implemented as well, where we could go ahead and get set up with them in the event that we will be potentially getting a payment from them in the future? Or do we just need to wait until the need arises?
I think you have to wait until the need arises. That's a really good point, and I'm happy. So this just rolled out like a little over a week ago, and there are going to be adjustments to this. So we can basically have Collin CARES Act 2.0 moving forward. So that's something I'll definitely look into. Again, I don't know all of it yet because the way that it's been delegated is that local nonprofits are really the ones that are processing the payments. So I don't think that there's like a centralized way, but I'll double check on that, Danny.
Great, thanks.
City of Dallas, when I looked at their requirements, it looked like you had to be below poverty line or close to poverty line to receive any of the funds. Is that something similar for Collin County?
No, actually, the way that Collin County works is actually it's 200% So that's a lot of money. For one person, I think it's like $125,000. If for two person family, I think it's like 140. So it's actually pretty large. It's above. My point is that it's above the average income.
And there was a comment in commercial, in the commercial world, it looks like the rent's only getting paid 50% of the time. I mean, I know we're talking about residential, but that was just a comment that was made in the commercial world.
Yeah, we're seeing a lot of problems in the commercial world right now, and I'm hoping, in my personal opinion, I've heard some talks from some federal people about some type of relief, because that's the only way it's going to work, because commercial property, like commercial is very different than residential, as we all know. Commercial property in like Irving, for example, is most similar to maybe something in like Minneapolis, right? It's not simply like the same commercial property next door. So there have been talks about, I don't know how serious they are, but having some type of federal package that's going to help with the commercial mortgages, because there's a lot of them. But I haven't seen anything locally, unfortunately.
So there's another comment. We've been lucky to have tenants pay, but it's also been great to have a resource list for tenants to request it. So it seems like some property managers are putting a resource list together for their tenants if they need it. Is there something that we can get like that in Collin County, like just a list of resources?
Yeah, I mean, that's what the committee's here for,
Yeah.
Our property management committee I'm sure with our great leadership we have, we could put together a great resource list. I think that's absolutely something we can do.
Yeah, it's also worth pointing out again that this forum itself was created at the initiative of that kind of input, right? What's available for us. And the document that Adam has already presented here in this format is in fact easily be modified to say, here's what I can give to my tenants, or where to go and how to pursue it. So I really think that content for the most part has been provided in this format today.
And I agree with Amy's comment about the resource list. That's one of the first things that we did. I tasked a member of our team to just scour the internet, just looking for any type of resources that tenants can utilize. So, if for those of the people on the call, if you have not put something together like that, good places to start would be, CCAR's list of resources, Texas Realtors list of resources. The Dallas Morning News has a lot of information out there. It doesn't have to be pretty. Anything that you can provide to tenants that can potentially help you collect that rent, throw it on a piece of paper and let them go, do the legwork on it. That's what we did. And we actually had a few tenants that utilized it, and we got payments, from some of the nonprofits out there.
Thank you. So when the tenants are receiving assistance, do their credit get affected? Does their credit get affected and it harms them in the future for applying, or how does that work?
No, it's simply a grant. It's
Okay.
really just a grant. And again, as I said earlier, it's a grant that has been accessed. So if you think of it like this, when the CARES Act was passed, the local counties and cities were able to, there was a bunch of money in there for the local counties and cities to help with their COVID-19 epidemics. And it was really left up to the cities and counties to figure out how they're going to implement it. And so when that money came in and Collin County went out and got it from the federal government, they basically just wanted to make sure that there was some subsidies for real estate. And it's grant money. It should not affect anybody negatively.
Very good. I know in the mortgage world, I know when some owners have asked for forbearance, I think it's hindered their ability to buy other properties. So I wasn't sure how that worked for tenants.
Yeah, I mean, it's one thing and I'm sure that our seasoned property managers can answer this better than I can, but it's one thing if people don't pay their rent, right? And it's another thing if they get a grant to help subsidize it. It's just different. I don't think that getting this grant will do anything other than ensure that your payments are up to date.
JC or Danny, did you have comments on that?
If they get a grant and pay the rent, then the rent's paid. There would be no effect. The source of funds wouldn't matter, in my opinion.
I essentially agree with that.
Okay. So kind of going a little bit further away from rent, when you plan to place, this summer is probably the busiest season for us as far as vacancies and placing new tenants. Are you changing your criteria at all? When you're placing new tenants, are you changing your rental criteria?
We are not. We're fully informing owners of anything we uncover. I have a application I'm reviewing today where the lady was unemployed. The apartments let her out of the lease, and it's not affected her credit at this point. Now she's reemployed in a different type of position, a temporary position, a bartender. And so she doesn't have any record of that type of employment. We're letting the owner know all these things and the owner make the decision. There's another person that's applying also, and they're stronger. So that's the first instance we've seen of an applicant who was unable to complete a lease due to COVID-19. And I don't know what the outcome will be yet.
What about you, Danny?
Yeah, I pretty much agree with JC. I mean, we haven't had to make any changes to our tenant selection criteria to this point. Again, I just like to preface everything I'm saying is, I think we skew our portfolio, up a little bit to the higher end of the market versus the lower end. I think there may be some major changes or reevaluations made in the multifamily realm. But, in our sandbox, so to speak, we haven't had to make any changes. And another thing that has been pleasantly surprising to me is the amount of activity there is, the amount of demand there is, the amount of multiple application scenarios out there. I was looking at the numbers from this time last year, and we've got more properties turning over now than we did last year. And we're having, multiple applications on properties, sight unseen applications on properties. So, there has really not been the need for us to make any modifications to our tenant selection criteria. Where are we going to be in 3 months, 6 months? Nobody knows. This may be something that we have to reevaluate somewhere down the road, but it hasn't impacted our business at all as far as finding truly qualified applicants.
One thing we are seeing is for June, March was fine, April was really good, May was pretty good. In June, we just had several people call and say, I've been paying you out of my savings account and it's gone. So some of those have applied for assistance. We've not yet received any checks from that. So Danny, I do think we got another several months that we don't know exactly how that's going to go.
Yeah, I agree with that as well. Again, it's something that it's still a fluid situation, and it hasn't impacted us, in my company yet, but it may be something that we have to look at a few months down the road.
There's a question. If somebody's currently out of a job, due to disaster COVID-19, will you qualify them if they have good credit score?
JC?
So if they're currently out of a job and they have a good credit score.
Well, that's a little tougher call. That's really up to the owner, and it would be affected by how many people are applying, the other applicants have income, what are their resources. So we've not come across that exact situation, but I think that's the way we would look at it is, what are their resources? If they don't have current income, what are their assets?
I mean, I agree with that too. It might be a situation if we can't You know, if there is no potentially verifiable income, you know, it might be something where it might be an additional deposit scenario to better protect the owner. We've actually had people kind of in that same situation that say, look, I don't currently have a job. I was laid off. And I think a lot of the tenants out there also realize how much demand there is for housing right now. And so those that are in this situation know, well, they're most likely not going to take me because I'm out of a job right now. And we're having people saying, look, I'll give you 3 months up front, you know, or 6 months up front, or double deposit or triple or whatever. You know, they're actually coming to us pleading their case. So, you know, that really helps get over the hump of lack of employment.
Thank you. So then the next question is a little bit different. So over the last few months, has your relationship with as a property manager and your relationship with the owner, have your fiduciary relationship, has it changed much?
You want me to go first, JC?
Yeah, please do.
I actually think it's made the relationship stronger. You know, I think that, you know, we all in the industry, we get into a groove, and, you know, we all have different levels of interaction and communication with our owners. But, you know, with so much uncertainty and so many people just freaking out and sky is falling people out there, you know, we've had a lot more hand holding with owners. I've sent out a lot more communication to owners, but I've had a lot more return the love, so to speak, you know, from owners. You know, they're really now, some of the ones that just kind of take us for granted are really starting to see the value that we bring to the table, you know, because we're navigating these uncharted waters for them. We've evaluated the CARES Act. We get on calls together as professionals like this, and we learn from one another and gather this data so that we can better present it to our owners. I have not had as many thank yous than we've had since March 27th when the CARES Act came out. You know, I mean, for those of you that have been in the business forever, you know that this is a thankless job. And I've had so many clients just say, thank you so much. I don't know how I would have done this without you. So I think it's been a really good opportunity for us in the industry to truly show we are worth every single penny that you pay us. And in fact, you're underpaying us in most instances. So, but yeah, I mean, the takeaway is it's made the relationships much stronger.
I agree 100% with Danny. We've been communicating more. We monitor state and federal actions. We convey this to our owners, and we too have gotten a whole lot of thank yous, and I appreciate you. Thank you for what you're doing. I have not had anybody say they're overpaying us, but they do appreciate what we're doing now. I've not been in a situation where an owner has tried to insist on us doing something that we can't. We are explaining in detail what solutions and actions can be taken and what cannot. And it's just strengthened the relationship. I agree 100%.
Very good. How are you handling maintenance right now? You know, I know maintenance for me has changed. I have one vendor who refuses to go into a house to do minor things. And so we've been trying to keep the tenant happy and keep the owner kind of calm. So that's been changed for us. And but for the most part, I haven't had any issues like big ticket items, but the smaller ones, it's been challenging.
Yeah, I think that, again, once this first broke out in March, you know, we sat down, we reevaluated everything. Maintenance was a big part of that. One of the first communications to our owners was, you know, if it's not emergency maintenance, we're not going to do it until further notice. We softened on that really quick. One of the reasons was I was looking at all of our vendors, right? And they need work. So, you know, we then changed our stance and basically got with our vendors and said, this is ultimately up to both parties, the tenant and the vendor. If both parties feel comfortable with scheduling, provided they're following CDC guidelines, you know, best practices, social distancing, masks, etc. If both parties feel comfortable, then we started doing maintenance. You know, I don't know about the rest of you guys on the call. I was expecting a lot of deferred maintenance requests just because a lot of tenants would be scared to have people into their house. I was actually surprised. I mean, I think it was everybody just being at home, but we got a huge wave of maintenance requests. So we really haven't had a lot of issues. We have had a few, where tenants put in the request going, hey, I just want you to know about this, but I don't feel comfortable having you in my property yet. I respect that. So, we've kind of put that, delayed responding to that. But, we changed gears really quick to follow CDC guidelines, make sure both parties feel comfortable with having access. And honestly, I don't think we've skipped a beat. I think things have run pretty smoothly from the maintenance perspective. One little nugget of info I'll share is I was on a conference call or a forum like this a few weeks back, and the owner of Property Meld was on there. There's probably a few of you that were on that call, and he's a big data dork, self-proclaimed data dork. And Property Meld is a maintenance software solution for those of you who don't know what it is. He's got, I think, 300,000 units running through this software, so he can analyze a lot of data. And his takeaway from analyzing the data is we're going to have a tidal wave of deferred maintenance requests coming at us. It's still out in the ocean and it's coming into shore right now, so it's going to overwhelm us. I haven't personally seen that, but I found that to be very interesting. But I probably said too much, but my takeaway is we really haven't skipped a beat. Things are going well.
Right, you,
I
JC.
certainly agree with Danny. We tightened it a whole lot and then we backed off fairly quickly. But people being home has changed things. Some folks don't want people in because they're there. Our experience has been kind of the opposite. I did ran a few numbers. Between February and May, our monthly maintenance calls increased by just about 20%. People are staying home. And I don't have tight figures for June so far, but it seems like we got a whole lot more AC calls than we ever had before in June. So I think we're responding. We're satisfying folks. We're reminding them of the guidelines. But yeah, we got more going on.
I think people staying at home, there's probably more use of equipment, and they probably also notice things that they've never noticed before.
Right.
So yeah, there was a question in the chat box. Do you require your maintenance staff to wear a mask, and how do you implement that?
Well, we sent out a bulletin to all of our vendors, essentially saying this is what our best practices is, and this is what we recommend you do on site. All the standard stuff. Follow CDC guidelines, social distance as much as possible. But we've taken a step further. We are telling them we want them wearing masks at all times in the properties. We also have told them to ask permission once they first enter a property to may I wash my hands, right? So that, it's kind of like, if you go to a doctor's office and you see the doctor wash his hands right before he works on you, whatever, it's just
Right.
that extra feel good. That's something I came up with on my own. So, they're asking to wash hands, and then I tell them also ask to wash your hands when you leave, right? So, that is pretty much how we've gone forward with it. We've also told tenants, hey, if you don't want them like touching your doorknobs or things like that, when you hear the knock at your door, when the tech arrives, open the door, leave it open, take some steps back, let the vendor in, and then when he leaves, try to do as contactless maintenance as much as possible. And then also tell the vendors, don't touch anything unless you absolutely have to touch it. I mean, all of that is pretty much worked for us. We've had one complaint in 3 months now, of a vendor that was just chatty and was sitting there, and the lady was like 7 months pregnant. I'm like, what are you doing? Get out of that house. But other than that, that's worked really well for us.
Right, you, JC.
We've been doing a lot of the same things. Danny, thank you. We haven't instructed them to wash their hands going and coming, but we will be doing that. That's a good idea. We have required masks. We don't go there every time. We let the tenants know that the vendor is supposed to be wearing a mask. We've not received any complaints. So I think we have pretty good compliance on that.
What about property reviews? Are you still doing property reviews during this time, or you put that on hold?
We have not, but we're about to start. One thing, we have a lot of properties turning over. It's very active, as Daddy has said. So we're in a lot of properties already. 3 or 4 of our owners have said, don't worry about it. I mean, we did put out that we weren't going to do it. And then I've not had anybody specifically ask, will you do it now? But we will be phasing that back in shortly.
Yeah,
How about
I
you?
agree with JC. I mean, that's one of the things I mentioned off the top. That was one of the first things that we put on. We paused, when we started this,
Right.
was no more on-site inspections, just out of safety for all parties involved. We haven't rolled them back out yet, but we're in the same state as JC. This is something that we're looking at doing in the next 30 to 45 days to get
Yep.
those going again.
There is a question in the chat box. Have you seen any relief from HOA rules and restrictions due to COVID-19? What an example could be if a car parked in the street for more than 3 days without moving. I think mainly just, I don't know about the car, but I think mainly just any relief from HOAs.
Not that I know of.
We have not experienced any relief from HOAs.
And as some of you that know me pretty well, HOAs are my hot topic. So I would let y'all know if I saw any relief in sight, for sure.
I think it's a great question, but we haven't seen anything either.
Okay, I want to check again and make sure we've answered all the questions. So let's moving on to the final question. And if you are in this webinar and if you've got questions, go ahead and start typing them, and then we'll answer those questions. In general, for us property managers out there, what changes do you foresee that will come in our business and rules, in new forms from TR? What kind of things do you see for us in the future? Adam, you want to take that one first?
I mean, I'll just say it from like a kind of a government affairs perspective. I'll start with the realtor perspective really quick. I can't explain more how well the local, state, and federal advocacies have worked together across the whole country. While there are some states where real estate hasn't been considered essential, I'll tell you this: the local Texas government affairs people have worked hand in hand with the state and the federal. I mean, when you really think about it, it's really, really incredible that the federal lobby was able to get essential services under CISA 2.0, basically meaning that when the governor of Texas decided to basically have a stay-at-home shelter-in-place order, that he took hand in hand from what CISA 2.0 was as what was considered basically essential services. So that really helped. And then prior to that, the locals were able to basically ensure that real estate services were considered essential. I mean, when you really think about how it worked hand in hand, I really do think that in the future, I think a lot more initiatives will take place in the realtor world regarding really local, state, and federal advocacy being on. We've always been on the same page regarding issues, but really, really advocating in tandem together. And I'm really excited about that. So that will be a nice little change. As for just government affairs in the North Texas area, I'll say that our delegation in Collin County, I could not be more proud of. They've just been absolutely incredible to work with, and they truly understand the importance of private property and home ownership. And it's just wonderful. It's just wonderful. It just kind of what our mission's been for the past, numerous years of putting the whole good team of government together. So there's nothing really that I see changing, just more kind of collaboration. I think there'll be a lot more of that moving forward.
JC, you want to take it next?
Well, from a different perspective, I think our business can be related a little bit to the travel business or the airline business. There are changes that have come into effect that will remain indefinitely or forever. And that may be disinfecting a home right before a new tenant moves in. It may be vendors wearing masks. There's research all over the place about how effective masks are, but it's an accepted thing. That's the type of thing that I think is going to carry forward for who knows how long. I'm sure there's others, but that I see it like other industries have been affected. We will be for a long time, even after we have a vaccine and the immediate threat lessens significantly. We're still going to be affected.
Danny?
Yeah, I mean, great answers so far. I'll even look at it from a little bit of different perspective from that. Some of the things that I wrote down, after reviewing this question, I think one thing is a lot of us in the industry are going to have to reevaluate our need for office space. I mean, I think a lot more now. Before, I didn't say this off the top, but my company's been virtual pretty much since day one, and my entire team's virtual. So I didn't have to make a lot of in-house changes from that perspective. But talking to property managers across the state and country, you're hearing a lot of that. People are saying, "Well, do we really need this much office space?" They're realizing their teams are much more efficient. If they do work from home. Now, obviously, you got to have the right butt in the right seat, right? If you have a bad employee, they're going to spit out bad work if they're not self-starters. But I think that's one thing that we're going to see, as far as how it might impact our industry. I think there's going to be some crafty lawyers out there once the dust settles on all this nonsense, figuring out ways that they're going to make a heck of a lot of money by going after property management companies, finding ways to find out who was charging late charges on, CARES Act protected properties. So you might want to double check your books and make sure that you're in full compliance there. I just think there's just going to be too much money to be had that, that's going to be inevitable, and that's going to be low hanging fruit. So that's something else I wrote down. And then, another thing I wrote down is I think that there's going to be at some point down the road when all the stimulus money runs out, the unemployment runs out, CARES Act ends, the forbearance comes to an end. I think there's going to be a lot of opportunity. There's going to be a lot of opportunity due to, a wave of foreclosures. I think, there's going to be a good buying opportunity for our clients. And so it's a great time to be a property manager to me. A lot of people are still like, oh my gosh, this is awful. It's awful. But, for those of you that have been in the business a long time, when the economy's great, it's good to be a property manager. When the economy sucks, it's great to be a property manager, right? So this is, we're kind of like, and you can use that same analogy with the liquor industry too, right? So in that aspect, I think, there's blue skies ahead. It's a great time to be in the industry and continue to be in the industry. And we're continuing to show how much true value that we add to the equation.
I agree.
Yeah,
I
and
think
Danny,
that,
I'm sorry, Danny, I'll just piggyback on that. A couple of you said this twice today. I mean, the value that professionals are bringing to the table during this time is really, really starting to show. And I don't care what industry you're in. If you are able to bring it to the table and you're able to get it done, it really shows how much, how professional and your real worth, And so I just think that's a good message. And it's really great to see people excel during this.
While you're waiting for questions, Krishna, I'd just like to make a couple of plugs here. One is there's been a lot of great information exchanged here. For those of you that aren't active in the industry, there's a lot of value in these types of offerings, not only at the CCAR level, at NARPM as well, the National Association of Residential Property Managers. So if you're not a member of NARPM, it's just NARPM, NARPM.org to learn more about NARPM. We're honored to have Krishna on the call, who's our president of the chapter this year. If you want to learn more about it, potentially go to one of our meetings whenever those start happening again. Everything's virtual now. I would suggest reaching out to Krishna because that's the best investment I think you're going to make is getting involved with organizations like NARPM. I mean, I truly think it's some of the best money that I invest each year in my profession is to NARPM. But last but not least is the Texas Realtors Leasing and Property Management Committee. You guys are aware that CCR has a committee at the county, the realtor board level. There's also one at the state level. And I would strongly recommend that if you have any interest in joining us on that committee, JC is a former chair as well, and he will probably concur with this. It's a tremendous opportunity to join that committee and continue to learn from our peers across the whole state. It's a fantastic networking opportunity, but I think it's even more important now as we're all navigating, this pandemic together. So the reason I'm bringing that up is the deadline to apply for the Texas Realtors Property Management Committee is June 19th. So we have 9 days left. So you do that at, the Texas realestate.com website. So if you have any interest at all, we'd love for you to apply to join that committee.
And also, I want to take a minute while we're waiting on other questions. We're going to be doing another forum next quarter. So if you would, please send any questions that you may have or that you would like to have on the agenda. Send them to Jessica or to Adam, and then that way we will discuss them during our committee meetings. And this is the first forum that we have put together. And because it is just hey, this COVID-19 quarantine has given us a lot of information to think about. So please join us for our committee meetings. Right now we're virtual, but we do meet, and there's always a lot of good information. We have a lot of, JC is just a wealth of information for us. And so please feel free to get information. But send questions to us if you have any interest, and we will be putting notices out again for the next forum that we will be having next quarter.
Hey, Linnell, and it's worth mentioning that forum typically has met the second Tuesday of each month, whether virtual or in person. So we've got a lot of participation. You can see the wisdom of JC and, of Danny. We have that same circle that happens on a regular basis. So it would be fantastic. And absolutely, Adam always gives us a great update with regard to the tie to Collin County and the state and everything else. So in addition to NARPM and, the Texas Real Estate, our local CCAR forum is really a good forum to participate in. We need more of it. We need more of you.
Yes, our committee meetings within the forums where we'll be like this, where we can all see one another. And then hopefully, like Jonathan said, we'll be able to see one another in person soon. Yeah. But please join us.
How did y'all get started in property management? Ooh, Danny, you can go first.
I'd like to hear JC go first, considering he's been doing this since the year I was born.
Well, my brother Tom is my partner, and we started our company in '72. He was licensed a few years before that. And we just had an investor say, I want to buy investment property. His name was Monty Richardson, and that was probably in '73 or '74. He bought a little Today home in the Colony, and it just went from there, because the next thing he did is turned around and says, what do I do now? And we put our heads together and said, okay, we think we can do this. And we did. And that just gave us, and Monty was the brother of a guy we knew through Rotary. So it was a kind of a network situation, although that's not what it was called in the 70s. And since then, and we have folks that we manage their property that we've done so for decades, literally. And they refer folks to us. We also reach out to other agencies that don't do property management. But it was almost an accident, but I guess we did have to perform after that, I would say. How about you, Danny?
Yeah, I don't think anybody grows up, I don't know if anybody has a kid that's, 8, 9, 10 years old that says, I'm going to grow up and be a property manager,
I have to dispute that. My daughter wants to be like me. So she wants to be a property manager.
Wow.
Well, I have 5 kids that grew up with me being in property management, and none of them want to be in property management. I don't know exactly why. I'm sorry, Danny, go ahead.
No, that's okay. You know, it's not one of those things that I, grew up wanting to be either. You know, when I got out of college, I was a technical consultant. You know, that was my job, and my mother actually was an investor in real estate, and so I was free labor for her growing up. You know, I would go do make readies. You know, she had the cheapest make ready crew on the planet with my brother and I. I learned the eviction process at an early age. So, I kind of knew it just from my family experience. Professionally, I was sitting in my job out of college and I was like, I don't want to do this the rest of my life. This is boring. I'm not one of those, for those of you that know me, want to be stuck behind a desk. That's just not me. So I started taking the real estate courses, to get my license. And I got licensed essentially just to buy my own investment properties. I just wanted the education for myself. I never wanted to get into real estate. That just wasn't what I wanted to do. And so, my wife and I purchased our first couple properties, had a person in one of the same neighborhoods saw how quickly we leased one of our properties and asked me how much I rented it for. At the time, I had no clue how to price a property. Somebody asked me about it and I gave them a price that was really high and they took it. And I was like, wow, this real estate thing is awesome. This is so easy.
Easy.
So, told the gentleman, rent it for this. He goes, well, you got it rented quick. You're at such a high price, can you manage my property for me? And I was like, oh, okay. First of all, I had my license, but I didn't know you had to be licensed. So I had that going for me, that I already had the license. And I just was lucky enough to have a friend that had been in the industry working for a property management company in Dallas, called him immediately and said, I'm going to take you to lunch. I want you to tell me everything about this property management industry, everything. I want to know it all. So I just absorbed it all. And that's how I started, started with one property and it just kind of snowballed from there. So yeah, that's how I kind of fell backwards into it. And again, 20 years ago, I never would have thought this is what I'd be doing for a living now. And I still get, sideways stares from people. And you do that all day, every day. You're insane.
Sorry, my screen changed on me. Let's see if there's any other questions. Okay, no other questions. Well, thank you so much. Thank you for your time. Really appreciate it. Danny, JC, Adam, Linnell, Jonathan, thank you so much. And thank you for CCAR to kind of help moderate this.
Thanks for hosting.
Yep. Thanks
Thank you
everyone
so
for
much.
including me. And anytime we participate, we learn something.
Yes.
Absolutely. I want to thank all of you for joining us today, and thanks to the panel to make this all possible. And please join us on our next forum next quarter, but then we will be having another meeting, and we will be putting that date out. So thank you all so much for joining us, and have a great day.
Bye.
Thank you all. Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.